So if I elevate my tone, hopefully it'll drown out all the other influences in your life, and you'll listen and you're focusing on this one. But the reality is, you can't guarantee that. You look like one of them like shouting preachers. It'd be like spitting all on the microphone. That's what you do.
Is that right? As a kid, I used to play preach a lot. Like me and my little
What you
cousin.
used to do?
I mean, I used to get this state of one of my mom's friend. She always calls me the dirty sock preacher, because I would go get whatever I could find, and usually that would be a dirty sock, and that would be my little handkerchief. That's what I saw the preachers doing, like screaming with their little handkerchief.
You used to be throwing it at people? Or you just waving it in your hand?
So I'd be yelling in the little play mic with my little dirty sock, and then laying hands on my cousins. But I knew I couldn't do that for real.
They say you play around like that, and what's going to happen is you're really going to catch the Holy Ghost.
And actually, that is one of the things that kind of like almost deterred me from being it, because I couldn't see myself doing that. But you got a preaching voice?
You know, so here's the thing, right? I think because like you, I grew up in churches hearing people preach a certain way, hearing sermons close a certain way, right? And so, you know, you start off when you're preaching, and I always, you know, subscribe to the school of thought of, until you get your own, you borrow what somebody else got, right? Until you figure out your own style, you put on what you might have seen, right? And I think for many years, I adopted a model that wasn't necessarily authentically me, you know? I do think when I get on a microphone, my voice may like naturally like drop an octave, but I think that's more so because I don't want to be in a microphone sounding all squeaky. Yeah. Because you hear people on the microphone sounding squeaky.
Add that little bass to it.
Yeah.
Fill the room.
But it's like also like a seriousness tone to it. Like, yeah, we can have a good time, but it's also like a seriousness tone to it, right? Yeah, that I feel like I've done. But I feel like the evolution too of me preaching, like I felt at one point I used to just, I'm gonna try to end this sermon and I'm gonna type out, you know, like word for word my close so I can, you know, do what they doing and have a tight close. But then I got to a point, I'm just like, yo, this isn't natural to me. This isn't natural. This isn't authentically me. So I had to kind of adapt some things.
Yeah, I used to wonder sometimes when I heard preaching growing up, I was like, is he preaching from the heart, or is that a heart attack? Because it was like the, you know, and like the deep breathing and all that.
But the question is though, like, why do all sermons have to end in a shout? Or why do sermons end in a shout?
Yeah, and typically I think, like, because I have a lot of conversations. I'm a church kid. Like, I grew up in church, and so I have a lot of friends who are like church kids, and some people that I talk to, they literally feel like that they didn't hear a message if it didn't end
in it,
in that like aggressive, like loud, and they're like, oh, they didn't preach because, you know, they didn't shout us at the end, or they didn't shout at us at the end. And I don't know, like, I think that's something I'm still trying to figure out as far as like the psychology behind why we feel like that. I think some of it could be traced back to like the birth of our religious experience. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we were used to having people when they needed us to do something, to yell to get it done. And sometimes I think people feel like they kind of like adapt this mentality that people aren't going to get it if you don't scream at them to do it. You know what I'm saying? And I think it comes from I hope, or I feel like sometimes it comes from a pure place, like they actually want you to get it, but why do you have to yell at me to get it?
And I think a part of this also nestled in there is I know that I am on target with what God is saying to me if I see you responding a certain kind of way. I know that I'm giving a good message, or I know that I am saying something that is of value if people are standing up, they shouting back at me, if we got this whole exchange going, right? This interaction. But I think for me, it's not super, I mean, I will elevate my voice. I'm not talking sitting there monotone, right? But I feel like sometimes the weight of what God has given me to say, you need to hear it. So I've got to say it a certain kind of way, right? I need to say it in a clear tone, because sometimes when you get people hooping at the end and shouting, you ain't saying nothing. Like you are saying nothing.
Absolutely.
And people are just kind of, just shouting because it just the cadence sounds good. The energy in the room feels good. The organ behind you coordinate just like, this is good. This is good. This is what we've equated to a good church, right? Yeah. For me, I've had to be able to learn to be obedient to the Holy Spirit. So if I'm sitting somewhere and I'm talking, like, a lot of times people probably gonna be looking at me like that, like they're looking at you right now. There may be some people who are standing up and they're shouting, like that. But I feel like there is I've got to be in tune to what I feel the Holy Spirit guiding me to say. And then it's not until sometimes I sit down where I'm just like assessing, you were obedient in that. And me knowing and me discerning and being able to feel the obedience in the moment and the obedience afterwards and that affirmation from God. To me, that's more a validation than somebody coming to me saying, "Oh, that was a good message," or shouting back at me. Like, there's of course the icing on the cake, the doubleness of it. Or if somebody comes to me and say, "Man, that was a good word," but I think that a lot of times people just want to know that they're on the right track to some degree.
Absolutely.
But ain't nobody going to want to admit that. How many preachers going to really admit that though?
And I remember like early on in my like preaching journey, so to speak, like. I remember hearing from, a leader or a mentor or someone who was guiding me at the time, like, quote unquote, leave them on a high note. Like, leave
them wanting more.
Like,
so they come back.
So get them excited and then leave them there. But honestly, I think when I further developed my style of communication, for me, when I'm communicating, I like taking people on a journey. And sometimes it does get very passionate in my expression and different things of that nature, or for certain things that I'm saying, I want you to feel it a little bit. So I kind of will elevate my voice and different things like that. But at the end of the day, I really want the essence of my message to be sealed on their hearts.
Right.
And sometimes you can say some really good stuff, but then when you kind of close out with all that excitement, it's almost like people forget all the stuff that you said.
That's the part right there. Yes.
You know what I'm saying? They get so involved in that closing moment to where it's almost like then you have the conversation with someone later and you're like, oh, how was that experience, or how was church? And it's like, oh, it was good. He preached. Well, what did he preach about?
Right.
I don't know.
And what you gonna do?
Like,
nothing.
I don't know what he preached about, but it was good. And so, for me, I just want people to leave with the essence of the message. And sometimes that means towards the end, just bringing it back down and just clearly communicating, this is what I want you to take with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it spills over from church just into all these other different areas where I'm seeing people on a day-to-day basis, especially as it relates to communication with the next generation.
Man, listen, hold on. Who shouts more, preachers, coaches, or parents?
Ooh.
It's a good question, ain't it? You got parents, coaches, and preachers.
That's just loud. just loud.
And I felt like before I had kids, I was gonna be a certain kind of parent. I was like, I'm gonna be this parent. We're gonna be chill. It's gonna be a vibe. It's gonna be this. It's gonna be that. Listen, you have probably never seen me you've probably never seen me parent, right?
No.
Them children have a way of pulling something out of you. That is just like, oh my gosh. And part of it, and I've tried to just process what is it, right? And I think it's a huge part of it is fear. Because if I see my child doing a certain thing, and I know, one, I'm raising a Black woman and a Black man in America, right? So therefore, if I see them behaving a certain way, then I'm instantly jumping 15, 20 years down the line and seeing if this behavior continues, this is what it's going to turn into, and we got to get that out of you right now.
Yeah.
And that's scary.
Yeah.
As a parent, so I feel like, but the thing about it is I'm like, hey, I want you to hear what I'm saying, and I want to communicate it in a way that you can hear me. So yeah, I might drop my voice an octave, and I might elevate the volume on it, right? But the reality is it really the most effective? And at what point do people really, kids start tuning you out? And the same is true for coaches. Like, some of these coaches just...
Yeah, it's almost like, I think it's like we have to stop and ask ourselves a question like, what's more important, how they're behaving or who they're becoming?
Right.
And then what is our part in, you know, influencing that? And how, in a big part of what's going to influence that is our approach to communicating to them in those moments when their behavior doesn't look like what we want them to become, but then you can't communicate to them in a way that shapes their becoming in a way that doesn't look like what you really want it to look like. And I see that a lot. Like, in these days, I'm in a lot of like locker rooms and field houses and different things like that, because I get to be a character coach and a team pastor for like football teams and basketball teams and different things like that. And I'm watching and observing just the interactions. And, you know, it's interesting, some of the things that I'm seeing and some of the ways that I'm watching these interactions happen, because from the outside looking in, I would see, you know, young men who seem like they have an issue with how they deal with conflict or losing their temper and quote unquote crashing out. You know what I'm saying? Like young people say right now. And I would think like, man, like, where is this coming from?
Yeah.
But now on this side, I'm actually starting to see where this is coming from. It's modeled behavior. It's how they're being handled. And then in turn, it's how they're dealing with situations themselves.
Yes.
And then once and I think what ends up happening is a lot of this stuff, it's more so like embarrassing for us when they're doing it. And that's why we're trying to correct them. But then it's like we're not changing the model in front of them behind closed doors.
That's right. Yes, that's it. There's a character development and then a behavior modification, right? Or behavior management. And as an adult, we see certain behaviors and want to correct those behaviors, but ultimately we need to be building their character, right? And the reality is the time that it takes, a behavior can be fixed instantly, but character takes a longer time to be developed into a certain thing.
Absolutely.
And it's easy to want an instant change, an instant switch. I want you to instantly stop talking to people like this. I want you to instantly not be getting into all kind of drama at school, right? I want you to instantly be able to be organized and turn in your assignments on time, right? I want you to instantly go out there on this field and not just be a hothead and somebody hits you the wrong way, you trying to fight them, right? But the reality is, when you have a different kind of character developed, you become a person who just naturally does those things. And the time that it takes to become the kind of person that just naturally does those things isn't instant Kool-Aid. It isn't any kind of instant popcorn. It's not overnight. I was telling somebody yesterday that I'm a creator. I love creating things. I love taking ideas in my head and putting them and organizing them on paper and putting them in life or in real life. Or I love painting or creating in some kind of way. I love parenting because I grew my children inside my belly. Now it's my responsibility to build them and develop them into the people that I know that they can become. You know, not for the sake of trying to squash, you know, who they are at the core and their natural character, but for the sake of just building them up with certain values so that they can be the kind of person who lives in this world and achieves all the things that they are able to achieve, you know? But there's still that fear until that character has been developed in a certain kind of way. But I think that what we need to do, though, is be able to recognize the glimpses of hope that we see. You know, recognize, hey, you might not necessarily be the one that's starting it, but you're always around the drama when it's happening. So if you find yourself always around, maybe not necessarily in the middle of it, but if you find yourself always around the drama, then maybe you got to justice leaning you. You know, maybe you meant to show up in this space and be able to hold, I'm a peacekeeper. We ain't doing that.
Yeah.
How can you use your leadership?
Yeah.
You know, how can we, and how do we see the different aspects of character and help them to really just see who they are and elevate those things? And
even utilize that in, you know, some of the relationships that I have, because I don't have kids of my own yet, but I got a lot of kids who think they're my own. And I have to sometimes pause and think about, like, how am I going to approach this situation where I need to step in with correction and be a little bit different. And from my vantage point, because I am just a part of I don't even want to say just because it's super important. I'm a part of the village because I'm not their father. It means that I have to slow down long enough to understand the language. I call it the language of households. Like, each household has a different language. And if you don't slow down enough to pay attention to that, like, you could say things and do things that trigger kids in certain kinds of ways just because of how they're being reared and brought up. And you don't even know what you're doing.
That's it. So let me tell you what happened. So I was riding down the street one day going to get my kids from school. And there was 2 middle school boys beating up another boy. They had his head, like, pushed on the fence, punching on him. And of course, me, like, hey, like, I'm pulling over, rolling my window down, and I'm like, yo, get off of him, leave him alone, right? I don't know these kids. Right. And so one of the boys turns to me and he says, "Who the F are you?" I was like, whoa. I was like, yo. And so I don't even know what I said back, but, like, I'm a youth advocate, but I ain't about to sit back and take no junk. Yeah. So I might have said some junk, like, I don't even know. I don't even know what I said. I don't know what I said. Right. But I think about when it comes to the village that's surrounding kids today, the village has shown up differently for many years. Yeah. So therefore, you get a disconnect when it comes to some adult. I don't know this kid. I don't know what his experience has been. I don't know what if I said, because I probably didn't just say, get off of him, get off of him. I probably put some bass in my voice and shouted at him in a way where he felt it was okay to come back at me, right?
He probably thought you wanted to jump in the fight.
Yeah, I didn't have the relational, depth with him to really probably correct him in the way that I was correcting him. Yeah. But the reality is, y'all jumping somebody, so you need to get off of him, And I just think about the ways that youth, some, not everybody, that some teenagers and maybe even kids just don't respect the broader adults anymore. Like when I was a kid, I would never would have came back at an adult like that. Yeah. But the freedom that some people feel to do that is kind of like, where is this from? And I think it's just the result of the absence of a strong, solid village foundation of, like, I can't see my kid any farther down this street, but I know so-and-so is down the street and they can see my kid and they're going to step in and they're going to correct them. Absolutely. Kids aren't growing up with the same kind of communal support, communal discipline. So the way they engage is just a little bit different.
Yeah, well, some parents have adapted this mindset that, like, even when they know their kid is doing something bad,
not
or
my
they've
baby.
done something
not my
bad,
child.
they show up to the school and they're like, you're not gonna talk to my kid like that.
And that fuels the kids.
So it makes them think like, well, I'm her kid, so I'm not yours, so I don't have to respect what you say the same way I have to respect what she's saying. And I've seen that before. I may have shared that before too, but I know I've seen that in the hallways of schools, where I've seen a young lady who was walking down the hallway misbehaving, and the teacher stepped out and tried to correct her behavior, and she looked at him and was like, just looked at him, and, like, the hairs on my neck stood up, because, like I said, I'm I'm from the village where everybody can get it. You know what I'm saying? So, and I dare you to go home and try to tell your mom, then you gonna get it again.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So it was like, when I seen that, I literally asked the student, I was like, what was that? I was like, why would she handle a teacher like that? And they were like, because that's a teacher, it's not her teacher. And so she felt like, hey, I could talk to them any kind of way I want to talk to them. And like I said, I think it all comes back down to like how people are being reared and what the language of their household is. And sometimes we just don't realize how much that language is shaping how students or how young people react in different ways. I know I was at a camp too over the summer, and one of the volunteers was there, and she has a set of twins. They're young boys, maybe about 5, 6, somewhere around there, 5 or 6 years old. And so they were a little restless during like the service time because they're young. Like this, they have a whole bunch of energy, and we're trying to get them to kind of be quiet in a almost like a church setting for the service part of the camp. So they were just restless, and she was trying to calm down, y'all, sit down. But they just, he couldn't.
They weren't having it.
They were excited, you know what I'm saying? So I told her, I said, I'll take them outside and let them play a little bit. So I turned around to the young boys, and I'm like, hey, y'all want to go outside? Candace, when I tell you, when I said that, they looked at me with such fear.
Strange man saying you want to go outside. That's funny. Oh.
It was because they're used to hearing,
getting whooping.
If you going outside, we about to go whoop that tail outside. So they looked at me like, they straightened up so quick and sat and like, I don't want to go outside. I'm like, no, we gonna go outside and let y'all run around and play. But it was it just all goes back to like, what is the language they're used to hearing? And then how is that, you know what I'm saying, really shaping how they behave when they hear that in other settings. And I think that's the part that we don't pay attention to, is that I don't just have to hear this at home. I'm going to hear this somewhere else, and it's going to affect how I respond when I hear it. Or I don't just face conflict or handle conflict at home. But if every time I make my mom upset or I make a mistake, her response is to yell at me, put her hands on me, then when I go to school and somebody makes a mistake at me or makes me upset, is my response to yell at them, put my hands on them, and, respond this way. So I think we just got to pay attention.
And I think saying that theoretically, in theory of like parents or adults have got to set better models, it sounds good. But the reality is like, it's hard.
It is very difficult.
It's hard. It's not a, I'm just going to be a better example. So when you get in trouble, I'm going to, all right, now think about what it is that you have done. It don't go down like that. Because you think about coaches, right? Coaches are trying to invoke something in their players. In football, I'm trying to invoke that dog in you.
Yeah.
In football, you got to have a ruthless attitude. You got to go out there and just go at somebody else, right? So therefore, you don't really find a lot of coaches who maybe, there are coaches out there who may be kind of more mellow, but you find coaches who are going to be screaming because they're like, yeah, we got to bring out the passion. Yeah. But it's complicated. I'm not a coach. I coached my daughter's softball team for like a season. And these kids, this is at a point when they were like 5 or 6. Yeah. Right. So they were young, but I know my husband is coach. He's coached for probably 20 some years, coach football. And I've even watched the evolution of him as a coach and how he has, developed different coaching styles that are more aligned with who he is, maybe. Like he still will, get down with some of the best of them and kind of go off. But when it comes to certain things, it's like if someone is always yelling at you to do something different, then how do I know when you're serious? Right? So I've got to be able to make different decisions about the times when I'm choosing to raise my voice. So you'll know, okay, this is one of them times I really need to snap into it, right? Otherwise, it's one of those, I'm a zone, I'm a tune out.
Yeah, you do.
I'm a tune out.
Start to tune out. And
or you're going to overtalk.
Yeah.
I know with my children, I do a lot of overtalking. Y'all have heard me on a podcast. I will overtalk until my son be like, Mom, I get it. And I be like, I remember where I woke back. But I want you to know this. And he look at me like, so you can't overtalk too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different things around competing for attention, right? it is a lot. When you think about all the different things in the world, there's so many things that are loud, and so many things that are competing for attention, competing for influence, whether they recognize that they're necessarily competing to influence or not. But it's kind of like, you have a lot of people who just have microphones in front of them nowadays, who are online wanting to say things and discovering their voices and feeling like they got something to say. And with all the different things that are out there, there's like who is the loudest? So I think sometimes it feels like an elevation of tone so that I can be louder than everything else in your life, so that you can hear me and hear what it is that I can say. If I can turn the volume up here with what I'm saying, because I know that what I'm saying has value. I know that what I'm saying is going to help you down the line. I know what I'm saying is I got the best interest in heart for you. I know that I want what's best for you. Yeah. So if I elevate my tone, hopefully it'll drown out all the other influences in your life, and you'll listen and you're focusing on this one. But the reality is you can't guarantee that. Yeah. And I think the challenge becomes having that weight of influence. How do you have the depth of influence that makes your tone and your voice become the loudest, even if the volume isn't turned up the highest? Yeah. So how do I have the relationship with you and how do I invest in time with you so that when I talk, I'm gonna listen? Yeah.
And I think that we find that in more so the consistency of what is being communicated, as opposed to just how something gets said in a moment. Right. It's that consistency that produces this. It's almost like it fills this memory bank inside of us of not just the tone, but the tone is what helps us hold on to the words. I know there are some times where I've gone to funerals of loved ones and I'm looking at them laying there, and I can hear their voice. I can hear the tone. I can hear how they communicated things to me. And then I start to remember some of the words that they say or some of the ways that they handle me in different things like that. And that's the legacy that I carry on from them. Yeah. And it all comes from like how they communicated me and the ways that they communicated to me, using tone, using their voice. Yeah. And that's what becomes sticky. So we got to pay attention to that, because that's what people are taking away from us. Yeah. So
and it's those everyday moments, man. The consistency in the everyday moments, maybe not there every day, but the daily interactions, the random moments when I see you. One of the things that I love is that my brother works at one of the stores around the corner from the house. And whenever we go in there, my kids stay looking for him. Like, where he at? Where he at? Because it's just the whole, this is a part of my regular routine. I know he might be in here somewhere. I look up to him. I respect for him. I want to find him. I want to see him, right? So he's not yelling at my kids, right? But when it's time for him to say something, I think that he's going to listen, because it's just the respect that's there, a part of the daily and everyday interact, that consistency. Yeah, it goes a long way.